I'll ask your president if you can do it.
Participating in the presentation beforehand, but that's all good.
He's in the restroom, but we could probably do it. Well, it's up to you.
And we are back from closed session. We'll have the report out from closed session from legal.
Yes, Mr. President, the board met in closed session under 54956.9, D2 and 4, and 54956.9, subparagraph 1, regarding existing and anticipated litigation. There was no reportable action. On item 2, in regard to the existing case under 54956.9, there was also no reportable action.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right. So next up, we'll adopt the agenda. So board, we have an agenda before us. If there's no additions or changes, we'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
To adopt the agenda as presented.
Okay, we have a first. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we can call the roll.
Director Garcia,
Yes.
Director Moore,
Yes.
Vice President Jenkins,
Yes.
President Young.
Yes.
Motion passes 401.
Okay, excellent. Before we do public participation, I do want to just kind of kick it over to our GM for a brief announcement.
Sure. All right, thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to introduce our new Chief Financial Officer. After 2 recruitments and more than a dozen interviews, this position has been filled with really far and away the most qualified and talented candidate out there, so it was worth the wait and worth the effort. Jose Velasquez.
Hey. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank John and the board for the trust and confidence you've entrusted in me. What I say is I'm glad to be back home, and looking forward to contribute what I can, my experience that I've gained in another agency, to the success of West Valley Water District. So thank you again.
Excellent. Well, welcome back. All right. Okay, so now we'll go to public participation.
Once again, if any member of the public would like to participate in public comment, they may do so by appearing in person at West Valley Water District at 855 West Baseline Road in Rialto, California, via telephone by calling 888-475-4494, access code 840-293-7790, via Zoom or via email. Once again, we did not receive anything via email.
All right, if there's anyone in the audience or on Zoom who would like to speak, please indicate so at this time. All right,
There are
seeing
none.
we will close public participation. All right, next up, presentations. We do not have any this evening. So we'll go into the consent calendar. we have a single item for your consideration tonight. If there's no objections, we'll entertain a motion for the one item.
I motion that we make an agreement for the Spectrum Fiber internet service.
Okay, we have a first. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we can call the roll.
Director Garcia,
Yes.
Director Moore,
Yes.
Vice President Jenkins,
Yes.
President Young.
Yes.
Motion passes 401.
Excellent. All right, so next up we have business matters. We have a single item for this evening, and it's the rate study update.
And we have a few. Update on progress, and also we're seeking board input in order to develop a range of scenarios based on certain assumptions as directed by the board. And we'll go through all that here in just a couple slides. But we really didn't want to just plug and chug for 2 months and then come to you at the next workshop on May 31st and perhaps surprise you with what we did or didn't consider. Things like growth in staffing, inclusion of the headquarters project, grant revenue assumptions, et cetera. Those are a few examples. So again, consider this a mini workshop looking at what assumptions or even range of assumptions should we consider. And we have some suggestions. We're just looking for board input when we build the model and develop those potential rate adjustment scenarios. Again, these will be brought back to you on May 31st at the next rate study workshop. So again, just a couple more slides to drive this discussion. Next slide, please.
I knew that.
So we'll update you on a few things we've been working on. First item is the update to the 10-year CIP. And Linda, can you discuss this, please?
Yes, so we took a look at the 10-year CIP, and after the last status update that we brought to the board, we evaluated projects that were needed, prioritized them, looked at their phasing, whether it was a 2 or 3 year project or whether it could be completed in 1 year. We looked at the size of the project. We looked at whether the project needed CEQA or permitting or where the project was in design. We looked at projects that supported growth as well as repair and replacement. So that included new wells, pump stations, reservoirs, and pipelines. We looked at annual repair and replacement for like well rehab, reservoir repair, coating of reservoirs, whether it's internally and externally or both, any retrofits that needed to be done, pump stations, any booster pumps, meters, GAC vessel replacement, and we looked at as-needed pipeline replacement for the full 10 years. And that included the Bloomington projects as well as other areas that we're looking at in the future. And then we also looked at the annual CIP capital outlay, fleet, and equipment, which we have annually. And we took the average of the last 6 years, and we used that number to project forward. And we're also going to be updating it a little further. We have a couple of projects right now that are going to be bidding within this month, so we'll have more up-to-date numbers. And we also got up-to-date numbers based on engineers' estimates for some of the projects we're looking at.
Thank you, Linda. So we have a more balanced 10-year CIP, and if we look at the next 5 years, these are the projects that we want to get done, and we want the budget to support and have all the resources in place to make that happen. Really planning to accomplish 100% of all of that CIP as illustrated in the next 5 years. So next up, just want to talk about the customer survey a little bit. If you recall, Cora, if you could come up and provide a little bit of an update. As you may recall, we're working with JPW and the public outreach and the customer survey. So Cora.
Good evening, young members of the board. As mentioned, the survey was out in the field for about 3 weeks. It actually closed yesterday. We had about 400 responses from the public, and so we are JPW will be getting this information, and we'll be presenting that at the May 31st special workshop. That's all for me.
So Socorro, are they done with the survey at 400, or are they still collecting samples?
They are done collecting samples. So
Okay. Yeah, I think our original target was 500.
Yes.
So we're close.
So total response 400, but we did connect with 500 people, but completed was 400. It's included Sentiment, which was a third party company, and then also via our own organic marketing as well, which included Constant Contact and social media.
And, I like to acknowledge that it's not easy to get information. Who wants to do a survey, right? And clearly it doesn't matter if it's water or not. And for you to get 400, hey, that's still good information, viable.
Thank you. Next item is budget information. Obviously critical for our planning efforts moving forward, and we're continuing to work to refine our numbers. Jose, anything to add on that?
Yeah. Good evening, President Young, members of the board. As John alluded to, this week, as I started on Monday, I hit the ground running. Had multiple budget meetings with staff. I want to thank Gustavo for setting those up. And it just shows a great collaboration from all the departments, and we're able to complete it. And right now we're in the final stages of creating that draft. And the next steps will be including the business model spreadsheet.
And Jose's really digging into the model provided by Raptella. So thank you for that. It's important. It's a massive spreadsheet, very impressive, but we really need someone here to understand how every cell works with every other cell in the spreadsheet. So thanks for taking that on in your
Hey, John,
third day here.
I like to acknowledge that our CFO has only been here 4 days.
What's the holdup?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well done.
And finally, Rocky, can you provide a little update on our headquarters facilities master plan?
Yeah, thank you. PBK, our architect and consultant on this project, is preparing the facilities master plan right now. And the goal there is obviously trying to figure out what we're going to do with our headquarters and back of house operations. And when I say back of house, that's operations and maintenance activities. So we're starting to see some numbers come in about what good benchmarks would be for our district in the terms of the size of our headquarters, what types of facilities most districts have, and then also we took into account the needs and wants of each department. They all met with PBK. They also presented here at the board, and we heard the board's input. So they're starting to put numbers to each of those alternatives right now, and we're taking the approach of considering several different levels of a project. Stay here, do rehabilitations, relocating to another site, or doing more detailed demolish and build here. And the last few meetings that we had, we wanted to really make sure that we can justify this project. So we're also asking PBK to, in a business case evaluation, there's always a do nothing alternative, and we're considering this more of a minimal project alternative. So building C and supporting our back of house operations is something everybody agrees the district needs to invest in. So we're having them also prepare an alternative that's just that, so that we can stage the bigger projects over time. And we have about another month until we see that draft final report and we really see the impact of all those numbers. And we'll be sharing that with the new CFO as part of the rate study and budget analysis that's going to be brought forth to the board.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So here's where we're looking for some discussion and some board discussion. We're working with Raptelis on various versions of the water model, and they're developing potential rate increase alternatives, and that has to include certain assumptions. Those assumptions will include staffing levels and potential changes to staffing levels in the next 5 years, our level of CIP spending, and whether that includes the headquarters building improvements, and if so, which one, what kind of assumptions for grant funding should we include in the model looking out for the next 5 years. Just as when we first saw this in January, we had $1 million per year in there for grant revenues. And I think since then, that seems very aggressive. Grant revenues are always unknown, and this is a very uncertain time, even since January perhaps. So the board's been to DC, been to Sacramento. Newsom just came out with a revised budget. There's definitely some cuts there. So we have to make some assumptions about grant revenues for the next 5 years, and then other things the board may want to consider. But with that, I'll turn it over to Jose that he can expand on each one of these elements.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So within the model, we want to bring some scenarios to the board in the next workshop, like John has stated. And for the staffing levels, we're taking an approach where we think we could, we have the need of at least 1 to 3 full-time employees equivalents for the 5-year span. I think that would be a good number right now from our analysis. From the headquarters building, like Rocky alluded to, there's a not do nothing but a minimum, and we have a baseline for that. And obviously, we'll go all the way to a new building, and we'll see how that plays out with debt financing and how does our debt covenant ratio looks out with the model. That's something that I'm going to look closely with our consultants. And for grant funding, like John stated, I think putting $1 million or $2 million in the projections would be a little bit aggressive, and I would say a little. I think it's just a little bit that I think we should be more conservative from that approach. From what I see, considering the opportunities in the federal government right now. But with that, we would like to open it for the board for additional input, if they like the scenarios that we're presenting, or if they have any other input that they would like to include.
Yeah. The only thought which I have is just, I mean, I would agree, and I know we kind of talked about it a little bit at the finance committee meeting that I attended for Dan the other day. That, yeah, I think with the grant reality that we're dealing with on both the federal and state side, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. But I think we do also have to keep in mind that Norma Torres money is going to eventually come in, and it could come in the next fiscal year. So do we hedge our bet that that's going to actually come in, or do we just keep it at zero and then just, because that's a several $1 million windfall when it does actually come through? So that may be something you all might want to talk about, because I mean, it keeps sounding like we're getting close to being done with that finally, to where we're actually going to get the money finally. And that money has already been appropriated in previous appropriations, so there shouldn't be any issues there. It's just clearing whatever hurdles we still have with Region 9.
Right.
But that may be something that we may want to keep in mind when it comes to that particular part of the budget, that
Right.
even if we're projecting 0 new grants, we still may get several $1 million worth of grants in the
For sure.
upcoming year just because of that appropriation.
Yeah, great point. At this point, we're planning to include some of those existing known grants that just haven't, I guess, come in yet. Linda, can you expand on? I think we have like 3 or 4 out there.
Yeah.
The gen sets.
Maybe you have a new and a existing
Right.
line within the budget, because again, I think we do have some of these ones that we are expecting to
Yeah.
come in.
The Baca money,
Yeah, but
the Torres money, FEMA money.
Pete Aguilar has
Pete
put
Aguilar,
aside, yes. So
Wow.
we are keeping those in mind and
Yeah.
hoping that those come in soon.
do anyone
Good
else have
point.
any questions or thoughts to add?
just wanted to clarify a few things. So when we're building these scenarios, we'll basically go in with zero new dollars in terms of new grant funds at this point. If we do, I mean,
Well,
almost,
I certainly wouldn't budget that we're going to bring in $1 or $2 million. Now, if you want to
Yeah.
throw in 100,000, 200,000, I'm cool with that. Or if you just want to put it at zero, we can just go with zero. But I don't know.
So-
It's hard to tell because there is going to be funding out there. It's just we just don't
Yeah.
know where it's going to be or if it's going to be something we can get to
Right.
this fiscal year. So I'm fine either way if you want to go low or if you just want to keep it at zero as far as new. But I definitely agree. We shouldn't be probably budgeting a million or more in new grants
right, right.
in the current cycle.
My thought, I think, for building these scenarios is to put new grants at zero.
Okay.
And if and when grants do come in,
Yeah.
that's good news, and the
Mhm.
and the board has options every year of what to do with that money as you
Yeah.
develop each annual budget. You could opt to basically bank that money, put it in reserves. You could accelerate some existing projects in the CIP.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You could choose to not raise rates as much as a Prop 218 would allow.
Mhm.
So I think that's a good plan.
I mean, I'm good with that. What does everybody else feel? That makes sense to all you? You all
Yeah,
good with
I
that?
agree we should keep it at zero.
Okay. And then kind of revisiting the staffing levels, we're kind of talking about maybe building in two. Maybe we'll build in two, see how that looks. But I think it's pretty high probability that I can foresee at least two in the next 5 years. I mean, right now we're looking at probably 4 different staffing requests alone, but we're also, as I've discussed before, we have a new process with a business case evaluation to evaluate and prioritize these requests as they come in. We also need to look at that in the lens of the board and the strategic plan. So it's not just going to be numbers that drive these decisions. It's going to be the board's priorities. So we'll certainly be bringing that data to you, bringing that to the full board, have a workshop, these budget workshops, take a look at the plan and the board's priorities and if they've changed over time and where you'd like to see the new staff go. So sounds like you're good for now with this model to have perhaps 2 built in over that 5-year span.
I think that's a low estimate.
Probably.
And so I would prefer, I think we talked about it, like it being evaluated on an annual basis.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about this? We developed 2 scenarios. One has 2 built in, one has 4 built in, and it'll tell you how that changes rates, and it's just something for the board to consider, in the coming weeks and months. So when we come back for the workshop, well,
Yeah, that
this
sounds like a
scenario
better
has-
idea. I like options.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because another thing that we did talk about in the HR committee was that you would evaluate entry-level positions versus other position, 2 positions or a position that is at a higher level position versus creating 2 entry-level positions that you would get
Sure.
maximize more opportunities for internal staff.
yeah, when we look at really our new process, looks at the need for the staffing, and it's really a data-driven approach. We want to look at adding new staff, maybe looking at third-party consultants, maybe doing some efficiency internally, reorganization, combining departments. When we do have a full AMI out there on our meters, I think that's going to free up some staff time for sure. So then, looking for those internal efficiencies as much as possible, looking at all other alternatives, full-time, maybe there's 1,000-hour positions. We can expand that program. That'll give us a boost in some areas. Temporary positions.
Well, we probably, just because it's changing the world as we speak, but what's the impact AI is going to have on some of our processes? Because if we're taking a big long-term look, I think that probably needs to be a part of the analysis too, that, maybe we need to grow, but maybe not as much as we normally would because, like you said, maybe certain parts of the district will shrink because we just don't need it there, but we need it over here, or maybe this can be automated, which frees people up to be over here.
Great point.
But yeah, if we're looking on a long-term basis, I think AI is just like going to change the way we do everything now.
Right.
Yeah.
So for this, when we come back in at the end of the month, we'll have a scenario that has 2 built in and have another one with 4 built in. Are those kind of the bookends the board would be satisfied with?
I would like to see that.
Okay.
2 is very minimal, so anything more than that's good. But
Gotcha.
I mean, I'm gonna ask the question, how did you come up with the justification of 2 or 4? Like, what is the rationale for that?
I guess, it's I'm looking at probably 4 positions right now. And like one, I can tell you like immediately, I think we need to, we should fulfill that. There's new regulations, requirements we have to respond to. It's just kind of a numbers issue when it comes to staff. So I'm feeling like one is already, almost, I could almost bring that to you next week with that information.
Well, certainly if we're looking at a long-term growth strategy, I mean, we have to it can't be 0 because,
Sure.
like you said, if regulations change and now all of a sudden we now need to do something that we didn't otherwise have to do, well, now that's going to change things. So if we're just looking from a planning standpoint as far as, trying to figure out what rates would look like, then yeah, we probably need to at least have some plan growth in there. We don't know where that growth will actually end up going because
Sure.
that will obviously be a year-to-year decision as far as what's actually needed, but we do probably need to have at least some kind of built-in to the evaluation of there may be needs to add personnel depending on outside factors.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And you mentioned IT and the value of that to the business. We can just look to Romer as part of that project, that upgrade. We're implementing a lot of new technology. So we're going from basically 14 to 21 million gallons at that plant, increasing that plant by 50%. But really our plan is to not add a single person.
Yeah.
So there's an example. There's growth, but we use
Yeah.
internal efficiencies in IT to keep our staffing levels, in this case, the
Yeah.
same. So I feel like 2 is really a reasonable lower end. Now is 4. At this point, I don't have data really to point to, but it's
But like I
it's a
said,
bit of a
it's-
placeholder for the next 5 years.
Yeah, it's more of a placeholder because again, it's like it's hard to gauge what the need's going to be in year 3 or 4. I mean, you
Right.
might be able to have a good idea of what year 1 and 2 might
Yeah.
pan out as, but like I said, maybe the state passes another regulation on us in year 3, and all of a sudden now you're going to have to hire 2 or 3 people to do what they want you to do. So
Right.
again, better to at least build in just the prospect of having X number of positions in growth. And then obviously the actual will be variably different as you actually have real specifics to look at
Right.
that point.
And if in the next 2 or 3 years we get the AMI grant, we implement the AMI program, that's an inflection point.
Well, and maybe there's a year that we don't end actually adding anyone because we have operational efficiencies or we move people around and we're fine. But at
Right.
least as far as in terms of what our new CFO is going to have to do here with this analysis in Reftalis, at least we should plan on a conservative that we may need to add X number of positions over that span.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm hearing is we'll build one with 2, we'll build one with 4. If we'll see those 2 numbers and then we can say, well, if this went to 6, we'll have the data. We can work with the 2 and the 4 to move forward.
Yeah,
With
the
additional-
crystal ball's always a little fuzzy
Yeah.
though, unfortunately
Right,
on these things.
a little bit. And then I think finally, at least on this list, is the headquarters project. So Rocky, thanks for that information. We're building a new, what I call a baseline alternative. And so I think when we get those numbers, so this is for board input, we'll include in a scenario where we'll include the baseline alternative, and then I would say the new building alternative. And we did get some what's called rough orders of magnitude numbers between the different alternatives. What was really, I found interesting, and these are really comparative numbers. So it's not like a number that we want to like give you, like the new building's going to cost X amount of dollars. I can say it's certainly at least $50 million for a brand new building. But what I thought was interesting is that was not our most expensive alternative. The most expensive alternative was to remodel this building and replace kind of our operations area. I think, correct? That was, I believe, the most expensive alternative.
Yeah.
You're moving people around, you're shifting people around, there's inefficiencies with the existing building and utilities.
Well, honestly, that doesn't surprise me. Also, given how expensive it'd be to get rid of all the asbestos that's probably encapsulated in these buildings. But yeah, that's not shocking.
So those would, unless I guess unless the board has other thoughts, I think those would be the two bookends for including in the CIP planning in the next 5-year plan.
Yeah, I know we talked about it a lot at the engineering committee with Rocky about some of the different options, and it's definitely something we have to consider as a part of this overall rate study, because we've quickly outgrown what we have, and at some point it like I said, it may be more financially responsible to start with something new versus trying to keep rehabbing buildings that were built 70 plus years ago.
Right. With a new structure,
Mhm.
you have a lot of efficiencies in that, and
Sure.
not just with the building and the construction, but also with the people working together more efficiently in the future.
But part of me though also feels like we probably need to add like 25 to 50% on whatever you're getting quoted, because it just seems like anything that we've done in the last 10 years I've been here ends up being about twice as expensive as it was originally quoted. But
Yeah,
that's, but that's just the reality of the world right now.
Right. We've got a couple local projects we can look to for like cost per square foot. San Bernardino and I think Harupa's building some good sized buildings. Big Bear's got a project underway. So we'll get some numbers from existing projects.
I think I can remember Romer was initially about 30 million is what the early estimates were, right, Linda?
It came in a little higher than we had thought, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I remember that customer service entry ended up ballooning as well. So yeah, I'm just like I said, it's almost like take whatever estimate they give you and double it, and that's probably pretty close to what it'll be.
Yeah, front counter's been bouncing all over the place, but we're back on that, sharpening our pencil a little bit.
Yeah, but definitely I think need to have the different options so that the board can see what those at least early estimates are. But I think the bigger question is, how do we, regardless of what option the board wants to move forward with, how do we pay for that? Is it part of the rate? Do we do that separate financing? What are the options that we can do? And do we include it as part of the rate increases? Because especially if it's going to be a $50 to $100 million project, that could really push what at least the last time we had Raftellus here were looking like some pretty good low numbers. That could really push that quite a bit higher. So again, I think that's all things that we're all going to have to chew on.
Yeah, I think with a new building, I think you'd almost certainly want to get a 30-year loan bond product for something like that. Even kind of the baseline alternative, we're probably looking at least probably 10 to 20 million for that. So even that, I think you might want to push over time.
Yeah, but that's going to push up our bond covenant, which now means we have to have more revenue, which means you're going to raise rates a little bit more. So again, it's all
The trade-offs.
It all spirals down.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like I said, I'll be interested to see what it looks like, and I know the board will, I think, be interested in seeing the different options. I think Rocky, you gave us like 5 or 6 different variants, and that's not even counting the one that you just mentioned tonight about the semi-do-nothing improvement plan. But yeah,
We're going to nail down those alternatives
Yeah.
and things that make sense and
Yeah.
present a concise package.
yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
To realize the importance of it and having your backup staffing, because you're going to always have people on leave, so you're going to have incidentals. People are going to retire out, and you got to really forecast pretty tight on that. You don't want to have a gap for a large amount of time if you could have people that you could have promotable and supported by the entry levels that have been trained or cross-trained in some particular. So get your base up. It's worth it in the long run because it costs you more to run short, and you wear your people out, and you tear the morale up. And once the morale is gone, you're not going to have any productivity. So just a word that I just
Got
thought
you.
I'd pass on to you.
Great point. On our existing work plan is to develop some initial succession planning. And we're looking at least one department right now, especially kind of planning ahead for that potential departure. And one thought, and this is something that that was done up in Tahoe, is if you know a manager or supervisor is going to be retiring in the next year or two, if they'll give you that heads up, you start getting that overlap. You find somebody that can work with them and shadow and work right along. So it's really a seamless, well, I don't know about seamless, but it's a more seamless
It's a smoother
transfer,
transition.
smoother transition, absolutely, transfer of knowledge, etc.
Yeah.
So thanks for that, because sometimes maybe we have, right now we have 88 approved positions, and we've never had 88 people in place. There's always been, we're in some kind of recruitment effort. So that's something to keep in, that you're fully aware of. And sometimes we might want to add one or two just to get in front of those key departures. So great point.
Anyone else have any other thoughts for John?
I think you covered it all.
So we've got a little bit more. I'm hearing two basic scenarios with staffing at 2 and 4, and then the headquarters at kind of the baseline and the new building alternative.
Well, I would say bring all the viable options and let us.
Yeah,
hear 'em.
those will be kind of the bookends,
Yeah.
and we can see how that impacts rates.
Few options in between.
Yeah. Well, so you'd like to see some options in between?
Mhm.
So on staffing, like 2, 3, and 4,
No, I was talking about the building.
or the headquarters building.
Yeah.
So maybe the baseline.
I think Greg was referring to the water fountain that's going to be at the new building. As I recall, that the
Somebody still,
board still wanted a water fountain. So
just kind of all the different scenarios that Rocky showed to the
Yeah.
engineering
well-
committee.
What's kind of convenient about those scenarios is the total project dollars are pretty close between the alternatives. So for the
Well-
purposes of the rate study, the differences between scenarios won't be that much as what we're proposing. So we want to give you bookends.
Well, oh no, I agree with the bookends, but I'd like the rest of the board to be able to see the different scenarios.
Okay,
Yeah.
bring in and take a look at the options.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll
I
do.
mean, the bookends are important, especially for the planning purposes. But yeah, I mean,
What is the
some of
bookend?
those, some of those in between options, yeah, there may
Okay.
not be much difference in dollar amount, but I would like the board to see the same options that we looked at the committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. So I think, so on May 31st, we'll spend a little time to talk about the different options.
Yeah.
And if I may, just to caution, this is more of a rate workshop on the 31st, not deciding whether to go with a new building or another building. So, and I don't think you want to focus too much at these rate discussions about we're going to hire 4 or we're going to do a new building. It's just that all these things go into the model and come up
Correct.
with a number, but we're not committing to anything.
Yeah.
For sure.
No, agreed.
Yeah.
Kind of looking at the world of potential
Yeah.
future rate increase adjustments.
Correct.
So we have another slide for Jose. Talk about next steps.
Wrap it up. Next steps would be complete study. As you know, we have the board workshop Saturday, May 31st. Along with that, we will be refining the development forecast to see how close we could get to that and really incorporate all new services, new developments coming in, incorporate water conservation regulations, and continue the work on the headquarters facility master plan. And look forward to the board.
Unfortunately, I will be out of town, but I'll catch up with you all when I get back. Anything else?
I think that's it. That's it for this item. We appreciate the comments and the direction.
Sure. Thank you. All right. With that, we'll go into board reports. Do we have any committee reports? Rock, paper, scissors.
All right. Human Resources Committee, we met and we discussed policies and procedures. And staff continues to work with BBK on this update, which addresses new laws and regulations, as well as our own policy improvements, including addition to job progression series and improvements on our on-call and overtime policies. The working draft will be completed and presented in detail at our next committee meeting, so we'll be waiting for that. Community education and workforce development programs, the staff is working on developing potential program alternatives, including a summer program to engage juniors and seniors in high schools in our service areas. The committee reviewed the proposed outline of the program, and staff will be looking into to coordinate with and partner with the agencies in this effort. IE Works, there's been some financial stress at IE Works, and JVS is no longer a partner due to the departure of the project manager and the lack of funds. There have not been any program interns for this year. The board is seeking grants and more agency participation in order to continue the program. The board is planning to release an RFP for a consultant to assist in these efforts. The EPLI Insurance, after considering other carrier staff, is now working exclusively with Aqua JPIA as our best alternative, and they are now reviewing our loss history and other district information. And the annual 2561 report, AB 2561 report. This is a new state regulatory requirement. The state is requiring that annual staffing age vacancies report, which includes a public hearing and a resolution to comply with the new government code. This item will be brought to the next board meeting for action. Last was the project manager classification. A new job classification was presented for the engineering department, which will allow the department to have dedicated project managers and improve project oversight. This position will replace the current engineering position, which is vacant. Staff is responding to committee comments and making final changes to the job classification. That's our HR report.
All right, thank you.
I will present for the Finance Committee. The meeting was it yesterday? Was it yesterday? It was
Monday.
Days are going so fast. As a designated alternate, President Young filled in for Vice President Jenkins, who was at the Aqua Conference. The committee received updates and discussed the water rate study. Staff is working with Raptelis to refine the model, address previous board direction, and prepare for tonight's business item and the upcoming workshop. The committee provided some thoughts on the development of scenarios, which were discussed tonight. And we also reviewed the standard monthly reports, which will be on our next board agenda for approval. And that's it for my committee.
Okay, I'll be reporting on safety and technology. Director Moore and I attended. Site security. Staff is working on upgrading and standardizing alarms, cameras, and access control systems, and adding security cameras to 11 of the high-activity high-risk remote sites. Future grant funding, SCADA master plan. Staff has submitted the required documentation for the post-grant award application to the Cal OES, which is the Office of Emergency Services. This is a $250,000 grant award from FEMA, which is now being reviewed and submitted for documentation for final approval. Additionally, the staff received notice of funding opportunities from Cal OES related to hazard mitigation. Staff will coordinate with CalStrat to match funding opportunities with district needs, such as seismic upgrades and emergency generators. Additional updates include our GIS administrator is testing our new digital work order system for tracking and managing water leaks. The GIS administrator also presented at the ESRI conference on how the district utilizes GIS for emergency planning. We are looking forward to seeing some of the presentation at a future meeting. The fiber internet at Romer, the committee reviewed this item, which was approved earlier tonight for consent. That's the end of my report.
All right, excellent. Any board members have any report or comments?
I have a report. I just returned from Aqua. It was several days, and our insurance, JPIS. What a fantastic event, because this is my third time attending the event, and every time I've learned just a little bit more, and I like to think that I've brought back, and I know I blew up our general manager's phone as my ideas were coming through my mind, and yeah. So I know John and I had already several conversations. I've called him several times, and I hope to see some ideas going back to our safety committee and other things I'll be bringing up to a future date. End of my report.
Anyone else? I'll just add that yesterday was my grandfather's 98th birthday.
Wow.
And he's still in remarkable shape for being 98. So I'd like to wish him a happy belated birthday. Yeah, that's all I have for tonight. Other than I'll be absent at the next meeting, and Dan will hold down the fort, I'm sure, in my absence. But I'll rejoin you guys after that. So, all right, General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President. Already introduced the new CFO. So moving on to our customer service lead. Our new lead is Maria Muro, and she started on April 28th, coming to us with a lot of great customer service experience from Loma Linda and Bank of America. So a great addition to the front desk there. And also customer service representative 1. Second interviews took place on Wednesday, May 7th. So we'll be, I think, making a selection soon. Water conservation specialist. This turned out great. We completed second interviews for 3 finalists, made a selection, and got a deal going. So that person is now in the pre-employment process, scheduled to start on May 28th. So looking forward to that and getting into the making conservation a California way of life, or something like that. California way of life. Public Outreach and Government Affairs Representative 1. Second interviews took place on Wednesday. So looking to make a selection soon on that and an announcement. And then finally, Water Distribution Operator 2. This is out for advertisements right now. We're taking 23rd. So we're making a lot of progress. Yeah, we're getting down there again, getting close to the 88. Let's get there. It's been a while, probably since we've had 88.
You have filled a lot of vacancies since you came on, John.
I think yes, for
And
sure.
I forget how many we have. I think we had like 10 or 12 or
I think we're down 12
13?
initially.
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
lot.
Over 13? Yeah.
So you've done well.
Yeah, thanks to HR especially and the HR team. So I think next for me, I just want to talk about where I think my priorities are looking ahead. As you can see, it's a very busy time right now, May, June, with all the budget stuff and now the water study and all these other master plans. And so I see my top priorities are onboarding the new CFO, which is going to be very challenging. You know, I can tell already, but we'll figure it out. updating and advancing our work plan goals and preparing for a board update on this in July, as promised. Completing those updated HR policies and procedures. And once those are completed, I think based on comments I've heard, we'll take a look at the post-retirement benefits resolution coming right on the tail of the policies and procedures. Advancing and refining the headquarters facilities plan, responding to board comments and direction that we heard tonight in regards to the water rate study, refining that model and preparing for the upcoming board workshop, and helping to build our next budget for fiscal 26. So that's kind of the top shelf look, and that's all for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, John.
And I have no comments this evening.
Even better, thank you. All right, so next up we'll have Public Affairs, Sequoia.
Good evening, President Young, members of the board. Mine's gonna be very quick tonight. Just wanna, we're getting prepared for the CSDA annual conference next week with Director Moore and Director Bennett. We'll be visiting our local delegation and talking about our priorities, bills we supported, bills we're opposing, as well as we are advocating for funding for Prop 4. And the board was in support of the Prop 4 proposition that passed in November of last year. Now the money is getting allocated, so the water sector is fighting for more money to be in water, so we are able to apply for those grants through the state, since it's very limited through the federal government. So that's what will be the next week. Additionally, I've been in contact with Calstra regarding the June advocacy meeting. I know Director Garcia and Vice President Jenkins are the two board members who were who voiced to go on this trip, and therefore on that one it would be talking to the rest of our delegation and talking to the State Water Resource Control Board and DWR staff to for Prop 4 funding as well and interest. Any questions regarding those two items?
No, I think that Dan and I are still talking with Alvia about the dates, right, Dan? But yeah, we look forward to the discussions with Department of Water and Resources and the State Board and whoever that Calvin doesn't get to. We're really looking into the Prop 4 funding, so we can divide and conquer, get the word out. Thank you.
I did have one thing for you to leave. There was a tour that happened with Mohammed.
Yes, from Senator Schiff's office.
Yes, and it was a great tour. Joanna and Linda Socorro did a great job. They were very complimentary, and you were on fire. Yeah, you were on fire. You really were. You just shined. I'm telling you. And we'll hear about that for a long time. So thank you for that. And Jesse Almendarez had a fire hydrant. I guess it was not a ribbon cutting, but what do you call that?
Outing, show and tell.
Yeah, show and tell. Show and tell. And so we got to attend that, and that was pretty fun, watching those guys do all that and seeing what all it takes to get in there and move those pipes and put all those safety devices in there. So
it is on social media today, actually, so we highlighted the visit.
Cool.
Actually, thank you for bringing up the tours. We are working with our organizations to have tours of our district. So we have Chris Palmer from CSDA coming out on May 28th. We also have Michael Cervantes from Aqua coming out on June 5th. And we're working with our new organization, CMUA, to come out in July to visit our district.
Great. Thank you,
Great
Socorro.
job.
Yeah, thank you, Socorro. All right, Board Secretary.
Last but not least, a quick overview of the next few weeks. So next week we have a couple meetings scheduled with a couple of our board members. Meet with a historian working on our history book. Like Socorro just mentioned, we also have CSDA legislative days next week. External affairs and engineering committee meetings next Thursday. Just a reminder, we're closed on Memorial Day, the 26th, and then that Saturday we have our rate study workshop scheduled. And just looking ahead in June a little bit, our second board meeting in June is on June 19th, which is Juneteenth. The district will be closed. And that meeting was rescheduled to an adjourned regular meeting on the 26th. And then we have our budget workshop scheduled for June 21st. If there are no questions, that is all.
Any questions?
The budget workshop, that's scheduled for June 14th, is that correct?
I believe that's what we were looking at.
Oh,
I thought I saw
I-
that on my calendar.
yes, that's right. I think I set the wrong date.
Okay.
June 14th. I'll verify that date and send calendar invites with the correct date. Do you have the latest date? Okay, like I said, I'll confirm that date and I'll send an updated
Yeah, I have the
invite.
I have the 21st.
Yeah.
We will verify.
Oh,
Thank you.
Oh, it's there.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? All right. If not, thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.